Okay, let's dive in. Imagine this picture. Some of the most advanced stealth bombers on the planet moving across the globe. You know something big is happening.
Definitely hints at a hidden mission, maybe high stakes.
Exactly. And that's what we're tackling today. This deep dive is all about the U.S. B-2 stealth bombers, where they've been going recently, and crucially, how this connects to Iran's Fordo nuclear facility.
And of course, the backdrop is the ongoing tension between Israel and Iran. It all seems to be linked.
Right. So our mission for you, listening in, is to unpack the tech here. Because it's fascinating stuff, cutting edge, really. We want to understand the strategy behind where these planes are headed.
And also try to make sense of the political signals, the statements from leaders, without getting bogged down. Just give you the clear picture.
We're pulling this together from open source flight trackers, which is amazing in itself, plus reports from places like the Israeli newspaper Haaretz.
And analysis of what this military hardware can actually do. So it's grounded in reported facts and capabilities.
Okay, let's start with the movement itself. What exactly did people see on these flight trackers?
Well, the first thing that really raised eyebrows was spotting these U.S. B-2 bombers. Not just one, but accompanied by 6 tanker aircraft.
6 tankers. Wow, that signals a long trip.
Precisely. They took off from Whiteman Air Force Base, that's in Missouri, and seeing B-2s with that much tanker support, well, it gets analysts talking.
So where did they seem to be heading initially, and what's the immediate thought process there?
Their initial flight path pointed towards Guam, out in the Pacific, and the immediate interpretation, potential prep for an attack on Iran.
Specifically on Fordo.
Specifically Fordo, yeah. That's Iran's underground nuclear facility. It's near Qom, maybe 30 kilometers from Tehran, something like that. And critically, it's buried under a mountain, built to be tough.
Okay, so Guam is one possibility. That's, what, nearly 13,000 kilometers from Iran?
Roughly, yes.
Yeah.
A long haul. But the key thing about Guam is it's U.S. territory. No need to ask anyone for permission to launch from there.
But are there other options? Closer options, maybe. What about Diego Garcia?
Diego Garcia is definitely on the map. It's a British island, Indian Ocean, and it hosts a joint U.S.-UK military base.
And it's much closer.
Oh, yeah, significantly. About 3,500 kilometers from Iran, much shorter flight time.
But there's a catch, right?
There is. Because it's British sovereign territory, any kind of strike mission against Iran launched from Diego Garcia would need a green light from the UK government.
Oh, okay. So that adds a layer of politics.
Exactly. Guam means autonomy. Diego Garcia means proximity, but requires coordination, permission.
It's a fascinating strategic puzzle. But you can't talk about this without talking about the plane itself, the B-2. It looks like something out of science fiction.
It really does. That flying wing shape is unmistakable. No tail fin, no obvious fuselage bulges, just this flat, almost alien silhouette.
And that look isn't just for show, is it? It's all about stealth.
Entirely. The shape itself is designed to deflect radar signals away, and then there's the skin.
It has a special coating.
Yeah, a radar-absorbent material. It basically soaks up radar waves instead of bouncing them back. Think of it like an invisibility cloak, but for radar.
And the engines, are they hidden too?
Yep, tucked deep inside the wing structure, reduces the heat signature, reduces the radar cross-section. Everything is about minimizing detectability.
So, incredibly stealthy. But what about power and range?
It's a beast. It can fly something like 11,000 kilometers without refueling. Think about that U.S. to Russia and back, potentially.
Wow. And payload, how much can it carry?
About 20 tons of ordnance. Bombs, missiles, you name it.
Which leads to it being called the most dangerous bomber in the world. But there's one specific payload that really matters for this story, isn't there?
That's the crucial link. The B-2 is, as far as we know, the only aircraft in the world capable of carrying a very specific weapon. The GBU-57.
Okay, let's unpack that. The GBU-57, also known as the MOP Massive Ordnance Penetrator. The name alone sounds serious.
And it is. We're talking about a 13,000-kilogram bomb. That's 13 tons. It's huge, about 20 feet long.
13 tons.
Okay.
And it's the world's largest non-nuclear bomb.
That's correct. Non-nuclear, but incredibly powerful.
What's it designed to do? Why penetrator?
It's often called a mountain splitter or a bunker buster. Its job is to hit targets buried incredibly deep under rock or reinforced concrete. Places like, well, like Fordo.
How does it penetrate so deep?
It has this unique feature, a time delay fuse. So it hits the surface, burrows down potentially almost 200 feet deep into the earth or rock.
A few hundred feet.
Roughly, yeah. Then it detonates. The idea is to collapse the entire underground structure from within. Maximum destruction deep underground.
It's precise.
Oh, yes, it uses GPS guidance. It knows exactly where it's going.
But here's the thing, you mentioned the weight. That 13-ton weight is a serious limitation, isn't it?
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
That immense weight means only an aircraft with the B-2's sheer size and power can actually lift and deploy it.
So no other fighter jet, no other bomber currently in service can carry the GBU-57.
That's the understanding. The B-2 is the exclusive delivery system for the MOP.
Which brings us right back to Fordo. If this Iranian nuclear site is built so deep, so fortified,
Then the argument goes that only this specific combination, the B-2 bomber carrying the GBU-57 penetrator, has a credible chance of destroying it.
so it's not just a target, it's the target that seemingly necessitates this specific weapon system.
That's how it's often framed, yes. Fordo's perceived impregnability to conventional attacks makes the B-2 GBU-57 combo uniquely relevant. It elevates the strategic importance of both the plane and the bomb.
And you could argue then that a lot of the tension, the strategic posturing between Iran and Israel kind of hinges on this very specific capability.
It certainly seems to play a major role. If one side believes Fordo is key and believes only this system can neutralize it while the other side relies on its defenses, well, it creates a very dangerous focal point.
It really puts the technology front and center in the geopolitical game.
Absolutely. The hardware itself shapes the strategy and the rhetoric.
Speaking of rhetoric, let's shift to the political chessboard. What were the key players saying around this time? Let's start with the U.S. position, say, under then-President Trump, back in mid-June.
Well, Trump was making headlines. He stated publicly he'd decide within about 2 weeks whether to attack Iran. Pretty stark.
But did he leave any room for diplomacy?
He did, sort of. He also mentioned the possibility of talks, saying it would become clear soon if that was on the table. And, he'd previously said things like, no one knows what I will do, keeping options, or at least uncertainty, open.
Okay, so a mix of threat and maybe ambiguity from the U.S. side at that moment. What about Israel? Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Netanyahu's position was characteristically firm. He essentially said that if the U.S. hesitates, Israel is prepared and capable of attacking Fordo by itself.
On its own.
Yes. He spoke about achieving all our goals and targeting all Iranian nuclear sites. He made it pretty clear that whether the U.S. helped or not was, in his words, their decision.
A very clear statement of intent and capability, or at least perceived capability.
Indeed. And just to be clear for everyone listening, we're just laying out these reported statements here. We're not taking sides or endorsing any view, just presenting the information and the complex dynamics as they were reported.
Absolutely. It's about understanding the context. And what strikes me is how the existence of this B-2 and GBU-57 combo almost seems to force these kinds of bold declarations.
It can definitely ratchet up the pressure. When you have what's perceived as a unique key to a specific lock like Fordo, it changes the calculation. It might narrow the perceived options.
Yeah, it potentially makes diplomatic off-ramps feel, I don't know, less viable sometimes.
That's a risk, certainly. The specific capabilities, the movements we discussed, the public statements, they all weave together into this high-stakes picture.
Okay, so let's quickly recap what we've covered in this deep dive. We look at the B-2 stealth bomber, incredible tech, that flying wing design, the stealth coating.
And its unique partner, the GBU-57 MOP. That massive 13-ton bunker buster designed to penetrate deep underground before exploding.
We saw how their recent movements, tracked from Missouri, possibly towards Guam or maybe Diego Garcia, were interpreted as potential preparation.
Specifically targeting Iran's deeply buried Fordo nuclear facility, a site believed by some to be vulnerable only to this B-2 and GBU-57 combination.
And we touched on the high-stakes political statements from leaders in the U.S. and Israel at the time, reflecting the gravity of the situation.
Right. So maybe here's something to leave you thinking about. How does having this kind of super specialized, almost unique military tech like the B-2 paired with the GBU-57 actually change the game of international diplomacy?
Especially when you have a critical target, like Fordo is claimed to be, that's supposedly immune to everything else except this one specific weapon system.
Yeah, what does that do to how nations calculate risks, how they negotiate, and maybe even broader? What does it mean for global stability when a non-nuclear bomb, because of its unique pairing with a specific plane, becomes such a central piece in a major, potentially nuclear-related geopolitical standoff?
Lots to chew on there. It really highlights how technology itself can become a major actor on the world stage.